Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this an hour-long chat. It might go a little bit under, might go a little bit over. We don't know. But welcome, a warm welcome to my friend all the way from the Netherlands, but she lives in Germany, Tanya.
Hello.
Tanya Van Rij, and myself, Martin Colclough. And Tanya and I this evening are going to talk about philosophy. Now, explain a little bit of why we're doing it. Tanya and I are good friends, and sometimes during in the month, in the week, we'll have a chat, and we start talking, we start putting the world to rights, and then both of us have said, that's really good philosophy. And a lot of people don't realize that philosophy is a simple thing. It's really complicated that it's quite simple. It's not complicated. Now, to give you background to it, it's made up of two Greek words, philo and sophos. Philo meaning love, and sophos or sophos, whichever way you want to pronounce it, means wisdom. So it basically means love of wisdom. And as we get older, we get more wisdom, and you'll find that your philosophy changes with your opinions. And there's two types of philosophy. There's religious philosophy, and each one is different for each religion. There'll be some things that compare and some things that are similar, but each religion has its own philosophy. So you have Christian philosophy that's based on the stories in the Bible, spiritualist philosophy, particularly with the Spiritualist National Union, national spiritualism has the seven principles. The greater world has the pledge and belief. So there's different things that they look at for religious philosophy. And then you've got like Buddhism, which is a philosophy, a way of life. So that's another way to look at philosophy, that it's a way of life. The other one is life philosophy. And that's where you're looking at things within life that help you to change your life, your own belief system. And I know this evening I'm going to introduce Tanya now because she wants to talk about something. Tanya's background is she's a life coach, and she helps people. And she's noticed that in society today, there's quite a big problem that affects people and their philosophy. So I'm going to hand over to Tanya so she can explain, and then we'll be discussing it between us. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll try to answer them. Thank you very much. Tanya.
What you can see nowadays is that there is a lot of anxiety inside of people. Besides the anxiety of everyday life, there is the illnesses, corona, and now influenza, which is has a very strong hold, at least on the Netherlands. And of course, also the threats of war, the war of trade. The word I was looking for is trade.
Trade wars.
Yeah, so trade wars, like
Yes.
Trump says, I'm going to put up 25% on everything coming in from Europe, and so on and so forth. And then there are, of course, the wars between Ukraine and Russia. So these are very troubling times. And you notice that people start to live from their anxiety. And how can we live in trust and let go of fear?
Yes.
So that's something interesting to talk about. Do you have any views on that, Martin?
Well, I'll look at it from a soldier's point of view first. And having members of my family that suffer with anxiety for different reasons. And in the army, if you got anxious, they just tell you to pull your socks off. Go and stand in front of that mirror and tell yourself off and come back when you're in the right frame of mind. But that, I know from speaking to the members of my family that doesn't work. Now, what I would like to add into it, something I saw on the internet the other day, was that anxiety isn't a disease and it won't kill you according to this lady. But you have to work at it. And you have to look at what's causing your anxiety. This is, I mean, you're the life coach, and I know that Ann-Katrin watching, she does a similar job. But for instance, my daughter bought a house and she doesn't stay there, or she does some nights. But when her anxiety takes over, she wants to move to her mum's, go back to her mother's and stay with her mother, and her mother lets her. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you ask her, and I think you'll find this is with a lot of people with anxiety, if you ask them what's causing their anxiety, they've never really analysed it. They've never looked at it. They've never thought, what's triggered my anxiety? And I'm not a life coach or a counsellor, but if it was me, I'd give the same advice to myself. Why am I feeling anxious? What can I do about it? Instead of just leaving it to continue to eat away at me. Because what I know we're talking about philosophy. If your philosophy is, my belief is, well, I've got anxiety, so I've got to suffer with it, then what you're compounding it, because you're reinforcing within your mind that, oh, I've got to do this because my mind's telling me to do this. But actually, if you sat, or like me, when I try to control things, not with anxiety, but other things, I sit on my bed and I use breathing exercises, a technique that you gave me as well, an app that you gave me. And I find that by doing it and using mantras, so your mantras become your philosophy.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
You know, you see these cards, don't you? Inspirational cards. And they have little quotes on them, but really they're philosophical quotes. So what you need to do is, and this is life philosophy, not religious philosophy. What you need to do is create your own philosophy. So you write a card. I was going to say, I'm letting my anxiety win, but that'd be wrong, because that's quite negative, because you're telling yourself it's got to win.
Yeah.
So if you put something like, I can beat anxiety, you know, words like that, then people are going to, or the person starts to reinforce that they can beat it, and they start to think differently about it, if that makes sense.
Yes. Would you like to hear my
Yes, I'd love
philosophy?
to.
I look at something which I'm feeling anxiety about, because I do, like every other person. And I look at it, do I have any control over this? And
Yeah.
if not, I let it be and I live my best life as possible as it is. And if I have some control over it, so for example, I do have an emergency storage in my house. That's something I have control over. So then I use my anxiety to get something done like that, and then I leave it behind me. And in that way, I can stay in my inner peace and I can stay in my inner rest. And I'm happy actually, because the anxiety just goes away. When I don't have control over it, there's no need to worry about it, because it will only
Yeah.
be negative for me.
It's one of the things that a lot of people worry about is the end of life, passing away. Now, they can worry about it all they like. And I was 72 weeks ago. So it's getting closer. I'm hoping there's another 20 at least years, you know, up to 90 something. That'd be lovely. But it's no use worrying about it, because there's nothing you can do. There's no magic pill that'll stop it, because eventually everything runs its course. You know, even the oldest animal in the world eventually passes away. The oldest tree in the world eventually falls down. So, and the tree and the animal never give a thought to dying. Their thought is about life. And there's There's a saying, and because we haven't rehearsed this, people will know what it, hopefully, that we haven't rehearsed it. There's a saying that's something like, a bird will fall frozen dead from the branch without ever having complained. And that's true. Their goal is on life. Now, in my garden, I don't know if you saw it when you came to stay, but we've got a little blackbird and he's only got one leg. But we've been here 6 years now, and that blackbird's come every year. And we see him around this time, and he makes a nest in the hedge, so we don't cut the hedge until the fledglings have left the nest. We don't touch the nest. We haven't seen him this year. But if he isn't coming, he never once thought about not coming here this year. He lived his life and his partner to come and make the best of their life. In a garden where we don't put nuts out, and people might say, oh, that's not very nice, but it brings the rats,
Yeah.
which my wife doesn't like. You know, we're never more than 10 feet from a rat. Now, that could be a human rat or an actual rat, but you're never more than 10 feet from a rat, which is about 2.5 meters. So sometimes we overthink things, and that's what causes us the problems in life, by overthinking.
True.
And there's lots of things I've done in my life that I've blamed other people for. You know, my father did this, as you know, because we've done therapy sessions. My father did this, such and such did this. They've done this, they've done this. When you look at it, you are allowing it. And one of and Tanya's also a member of my Tuesday circle, but she missed it this Tuesday. But the guy this Tuesday was talking about something similar, that we shouldn't dwell on things that affect us in a bad way. We should try to think of the positive ways and how to correct it. Now, if we'd rehearsed this, it would have been fluid. It would have run. People would have seen that we're reading notes and that kind of thing. But by doing it ourselves, they can see this is how our conversations start when we're talking on a Wednesday or a Friday, depending when we can make it. This is how the conversations start. So to the people with anxiety, I'm not saying pull your socks up, because I know it doesn't work, because the members of my family have told me, not that I ever told them to pull the socks up, but look at your philosophy. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. So look at your wisdom and what's making you think and react the way that you are at this moment in time. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but you know, I'll just see if anybody's asking questions. Ann-Katrin says she can hear us. So it's nice to see that you're still there, Ann-Katrin. Thank you very much. Yeah, philosophy can be something quite simple.
I think you have a beautiful message for people with anxiety, and people need it because it's very difficult to come out of it alone. You know, you need some guidance, you need somebody to show you the way.
Yeah, with my daughter, what I said to her, are you in the house? And she explained what was going on. So I said to her, when you feel it coming on, and I got this from you, talk to it, ask yourself, why is that affecting you, sir? So she's sitting watching the TV, she gets an anxious moment, can't stay in the house, she got to go to a mother's. So, but she's never sat and asked herself, she knows that she knows it's taking over, because she said to me, when she gets to her mum's house and gets in her old bed, she starts kicking herself, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Starts kicking herself because she's let her mind win. So what I said to her is, the next time you feel it, talk to it. Just say, why am I feeling this way? And be as honest as you can with her answer to herself, because mine wasn't anxiety, but that's what you did with me. And to give people an example of what I'm on about, I went to Amsterdam to meet Tanya. She was a course organizer. I did a course with her. And she went to walk on my left-hand side. And I said, no, you can't go there. You have to walk on my right-hand side. I can't let adults walk on my left-hand side. So that was my belief at that time. So it was becoming my philosophy. No one shall walk on my left-hand side, but I never asked why. So Tanya said, out of the blue, you need help with that. Did you know I'm a counsellor? Which I didn't at the time. And we did a session that night. And I didn't realize how successful it was until I went home to my wife. And she came and stood on my left-hand side. And we were walking down the street. And it was my wife that said, Stephanie said, are you letting me walk on your left? I said, oh, I forgot to tell you. I said, Tanya did some work on that. So, and I can't go through the whole session. I'm sure you can't remember it all. I can remember bits of it. But basically, it was an incident that happened in the army where somebody was on my left-hand side that it was my duty to protect. And that's what caused, I suppose you could say for me, if somebody got on my left-hand side, I was a bit anxious. So I've been fibbing a bit. Yes, I've had anxiety when somebody stood on my left side. But then there's other things. And I know Ann-Katrin that's watching, between the two of you, you've cleared so much out that there's some things now, I can't even remember why I came to both of you. Because they've gone. You know? But then there's other things that come up. And I talk to them. That's why I say to people, talk to what's causing it. And an example of that today, what was I doing? I was painting today, cleaning the cupboards, different things for my wife because her sister's coming to stay. And I can't remember, but it was 30 years ago. Or what I said to it was, why are you coming back? 30 odd years ago, it's not a problem anymore. Just go away. And take it. So there's some more philosophy. You're taking charge of your belief. I know that's there, but I've sent it away. I don't need it in my life. And that's how you build your philosophy, by saying different things. I'll let you answer because I'll find something that Aristotle said, which I've already opened, which is the only preparation I did. So it's an introduction to one of the courses that we run with the Psyche Education Centre, and it's religious and life philosophy. But the introduction to the booklet, it says, the life of a theoretical philosopher is the best and happiest a man can lead. Few men are capable of it, and only then intermittently. For the rest, there is a second best way of life, that of moral virtue and practical wisdom. And that was by Aristotle. So when people look at these great philosophers, and I'm not saying they weren't educated, but they were stating the obvious.
Yeah.
They were simply stating the obvious. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, that it's love of wisdom. And it doesn't matter whose wisdom it is. If your philosophy isn't as profound as someone else's, it doesn't mean your philosophy is bad. Because it's what you love. The philo part of philosophy, or philo, or philo, it's your part. It's your love of your wisdom that you want to share with people.
Yes, true. And that brings me to another thing, which I already thought about before when you talked about your daughter, when she kicked herself. You have to be really careful not to fall in the trap of judging yourself for your philosophy or for your anxiety, because that doesn't bring you anywhere. When you judge yourself, you come into a very negative spiral, downward spiral. And every philosophy has its own merit. And every life decision has its own merit. You can either enjoy it or learn from it.
Yeah.
So I want to give people, especially people who are suffering from anxiety, from whatever, please don't judge yourself for it, because it won't help you. It will only kick you down where you don't need it.
Katrina's still watching because she said what we've just said was lovely. I'll read it out so I quote her correctly. That's so lovely. And remember, the issue is true healing. And you two ladies are so alike, and you're both my friend. It's a pity you've never met, because I'm sure you'd have a wonderful
We
conversation.
should do that. We should do that.
We should invite her in one day to one of the,
Yeah,
because I chat with Anki the same as I chat with you, and that all the three of us would, write a book on philosophy. But it's true, your philosophy, and it's picking up on Anki's comments, your philosophy can be healing. And I don't mean spiritual healing or being healed. Your philosophy can heal you. It can be a healing substance. And as I think both of us hit on it earlier, it doesn't matter who believes your philosophy as long as you do. Because if you've got a belief and that's your philosophy, it's your life philosophy, and somebody says that's rubbish, and you accept the fact that they've said that's rubbish, then you're actually spoiling your own philosophy, because no one has a right to say what is good or bad philosophy. Now, from my work in spiritualism, I've seen people assessed on philosophy. They've been assessed on what they've spoken about. So on about religious philosophy now, and people have told them they failed. That's not right. This wasn't right. That wasn't right. And when I think back to those times, what right has anybody got to say that somebody else's philosophy isn't right? Because your philosophy comes from your heart. It's what's created you. Well, it's not created. It's what's created the way you are. And sometimes we can let people's opinion spoil our philosophy, because they think that your philosophy is an opinion, not your love of wisdom, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And that's another thing we shouldn't do, is allow others to put us down.
exactly. Yeah,
I mean, I know in life that we have people who are put above us. We have world leaders, governments. It comes all the way down to your boss at work, your parents. Sometimes you've got an overbearing partner or whatever, and nobody, no matter what position they're in, has any more right to believe their philosophy than you have to believe yours.
exactly. Yeah,
Nobody should be destroying it. And sometimes people hear philosophy and they're trying to change your opinion, and they don't realize it's not an opinion, it's your belief. Okay, sometimes if you put it over, people say, well, that's your opinion. But most of the time, your philosophy, if people sit and talk and listen like we do, and I do the same with Anne-Catherine when we go to visit and things, you sit and listen to people because that's their life, that's their philosophy, it's how they choose to live. And what right has anybody got to say that you're living the wrong way? And touching on the points you made about war, like the war in the Ukraine, why should the Ukrainian people be subservient to the Russian people, or any people? Why should any person be subservient to another race, another tribe? Call it whatever you will. And so you should speak your philosophy. Have the courage to speak your philosophy, not be outspoken, but just believe it. And I think, what's it called? Assertiveness. People think being assertive is being strong and rude and telling people where to go. Assertiveness is part of your philosophy. It's about speaking up for what you believe and for your rights. And if more people had allowed people to just live their life it'd be a much happier world.
Yeah, true.
Anki said she'd love us to all three to get together.
So, okay, it's a deal. We are going to do that.
So yeah, we'll have a three-way talk one night, or we'll meet up one day when we're all free, and then we'll have one of these three-way chats. I'm gonna let you talk a bit now. It seems like you ask a question and I'm filling it for you.
I'm just totally agreeing with you.
Yeah.
And I still have a question for you. So
Okay.
sorry, because you said, well, nobody is actually allowed, or everybody has a right to their own philosophy. But then that speaks against religion.
Yes.
So because religion is, even if it's just 7 principles or whatever, it's a way of putting their philosophy onto yours, on top of
Yes.
yours.
Yeah.
So how do you look at it, at that?
Well, I would say the answer was in my head, ready to shoot out then. But if somebody's trying to, nobody's ever forced religion onto me. I've always enjoyed the concept of a superior being, if you want to call it that, or the creative force as I believe it now. So my philosophy changed from the beginning, but I'm able to keep the two apart. So I live my religious belief and the religious philosophy, and so let's say it's gone out my head. Personal responsibility, it's come back in my head. Personal responsibility, the fifth principle of spiritualism. That can be religious philosophy and it can be a life philosophy. And often people, when they talk about personal responsibility, they think it's about you taking responsibility for yourself. But it isn't. I think when they were given and talked about, it was something like this. People were talking about it. And we're responsible for everybody. We should be moving together like a big ship, or a big flotilla of ships. We should all be moving together towards the same island in the sunset. That's an analogy, obviously. And we're supposed to be helping each other along the way. But what happens is, and mostly with the religious philosophy, sadly, when the great religious books were written, they were written in such a way that the prophets believed what they were saying. And over the years, people have assumed what the prophets were saying. Well, really, Jesus meant this. Really, Moses meant this. Really, Muhammad meant this. But they don't know what Jesus and Muhammad and all. They've only got the written word. And most of them are written long after the prophets had passed away. It was written by followers. I mean, people found the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Bible was retranslated because of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I've heard say that they didn't show the true Dead Sea Scrolls because it destroyed people's faith in Christianity. So the two can help you. You can live your religious philosophy and still be a good person, but you shouldn't let it affect your life. They should go side by side. So just because it says, let me think, the fun. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's ass, which is one of the 10 commandments. That means don't stand there wishing you'd got what your neighbour had got. But most people now, if your neighbour pulls up with a nice new car, you look at it and you can't help thinking in your life philosophy, it'd be nice if I had that car. Now, really, what thou shalt not covet the neighbour, it means don't be jealous of them. Don't decry them because they've had a new car. Don't keep up with the Joneses, as they say in England. So it's a matter of having your own belief. If you want the car, they've worked for that car, so you go and work for the car. Don't be jealous about it, because jealousy eats away at you. It'll
Hmm.
just keep eating away. So
May
you,
I propose something to you?
yes,
My belief, my life belief, is to live from my soul's energy, my unconditional love, the creative force, whatever you want to call it. And I believe that if everybody would do that, we don't need such rules because you wouldn't be jealous.
yes, that's true.
If you live your life from love and compassion for yourself and others, then you won't be jealous.
No, that's true. That's very true. We've actually got a question now
Oh,
from Ankatrin. So it's my turn to ask you one, but it's to both of us so we can answer. Thank you, Ankatrin. Ankatrin says, how do you two do, or what do you two do when you find the present belief is not good for you and you want to change it?
will I start?
Yeah,
This happens with limiting beliefs. If I find to have myself a limiting belief, I do a technique with asking questions to it, like you said, and with these questions, I'm really looking at it if this belief is really true or was limiting. And if I find it was limiting, I just don't believe it anymore. But I first start to ask questions to it,
yeah.
how I do it.
And not to paraphrase you, but I'm the same. If there's something that I don't believe, or I believe at one time, then I think I'm different now, then it isn't hard work, but I work at it. And I'm going to give Ann-Katrin an example, because she'll understand it because she knows I was a soldier. When I was in the army, pardon me, I was a completely different person. I was still Martin, but I'd been taught to kill people. Okay, because I was an infantry soldier, so my job was to kill people. And that was my belief, that if anything this happens, we've got to go, we've got to kill people. When we went to war, I went to, in the first Gulf War, it turned out completely different. There was people, the enemy, that I could have shot, but I didn't. Because something inside me made me stop and think about it for a moment and look at them as they were, and they were disheveled. They'd got no boots on the feet. They'd got a bag of dates. They've got the prayer mat that was covering, wrapping the Quran in. And there was me with my section of men, well fed, well dressed, 3 hot meals a day. I could have a shower when I got back to base camp. The most modern equipment that we had at that time, it's probably overshadowed now. So I don't think you sometimes you make a conscious effort to change, but sometimes, and I know we keep saying the word philosophy, but your philosophy, your belief kicks in. And ultimately, my belief is that it's wrong to kill people, always has been, even though I was trained to do it for 22 years. Inside, to me, it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't happen. So I think we've given two different answers to Ankatrin there. But if it was something that I was doing in life, if I was walking the same path and I wasn't enjoying it. So let's say, give you an example. Let's say there's a path, or there's two paths. One's nice, you can follow it, and there's flowers and sunshine and nature. There's a lovely pond, and the other one has got glass and nails. You've got no shoes on your feet. You can choose to keep walking on the nails, on the glass, on the stones. You can make that your belief. But when you can see that there's something better, the other side of the fence, where you don't need to, it's going to take you to the same goal. And our goal is to reach eternal life. When we look over the other side of the fence, why don't we follow that path? And then we follow that path. then we might be on that path for a while, and that path starts to not meet your philosophy. Now, you don't want to go back to the stones and the glass and the nails and the things that will hurt you, but you can see that it's changed again. It's not a path anymore. It's a highway with lots of people on the highway. Now you can choose to be alone and go on your own little path, still enjoying the sunshine, not getting hurt. Or you can go on the freeway, the motorway, and join other people. And that's how we learn, is trying not to be singular, but trying to learn lessons from each other. And sometimes the lessons aren't nice. We've all had instances where people have talked about us, said horrible things to us. We've all had it. It's how you let them affect you. So it's up to you. So to answer Ankerton, if you've got a belief and you need to change it, then it's up to you. Otherwise, you're just traveling the same road. So yeah, and there's nothing better than having a good conversation with somebody and accepting what they're telling you. Not necessarily, but accepting is probably listening to what they're telling you. One thing I did learn, it was when I was a manager, and I was also a shop steward. Now, I don't know if you know what that is, but in the trade unions, they're organisations that look after the workers. And so you do management courses that are teaching you to be a good manager. And you're doing union courses that are teaching you how to talk to the managers and how to look after your members and all the rest of it. So although you're a manager, it can be a bit conflicting that you've got these two ideas coming together. And it taught me to listen to people. Even though the shop steward I had, not my shop steward, but the shop steward in charge of my staff, or who represented my staff, he could drive me insane. He'd say, "Can I come and talk to you?" And he'd come in and be on about my members this, my members that, and on and on and on. But it taught me to listen. And I think that's important. If you want to develop your philosophy, religious or life philosophy, you do it by listening to people, not forcing opinions on people. As soon as you force opinion on people, say there's 4 people in the room and one of them's dictating, the others will turn off. Eventually, you might have one that agrees with him and the other 2 will just turn off. Just go, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then when you've gone, they'll be saying, "What a load of rubbish that was."
Yeah.
Because you've tried to force your philosophy on. And that's how wars start, by somebody trying to force their belief onto someone. And to them, it's as real as your belief, whether it's religious or life philosophy. It's as real to them as yours is to you. And there's some people that don't realize that that's happening, and other people don't care that it's happening because they think they're better than everybody else. Like, how many times you hear where there's a lady in a small car that's been cut up by somebody in a big car, whether it's a man or a woman, and then they blowing the horn, blaming the little car, where really they are bullying. And that's what they have to think about. They're actually bullying people into, look, I'm wonderful because I've got a big car. But actually having a big...
Can I say something about listening?
Yeah.
Because that's really so profound what you said, that you started to listen, and that's so important. But it's also important that people understand what you mean by it, because some people think that listening is keeping your mouth shut and let the other people talk.
Yeah.
And that's not listening. Listening, you have to do with compassion, and that means that you truly try to understand with empathy where that other person is coming from.
Yeah.
Not to take over their beliefs, that's not the point. But the point is to really understand why they are saying what they are saying.
Yeah. You see, I had one of my cousins, he sadly passed away last year, this time, well, just over a year ago. and he believed in aliens, and he was a very, very intelligent man. He had 3 degrees in different things. He was a psychologist, and something happened in his life when he got accused of something that he didn't do, and it meant going to the police. You know, he was taken by the police because he was a teacher, and one of the people he was teaching said that he was going to kill himself. So my cousin said, "Why do you want to kill yourself?" And he says, "Because nobody loves me." And my cousin said, "Well, I love you. If that helps you to not kill yourself, I love you." So the little boy went home and told his mummy and said, "My teacher said he loves me." The mother told the police, and the police got involved and everything, and virtually destroyed his life so much that he stopped teaching, and then he changed and started talking about all these strange, to me they were strange, aliens, things that you just couldn't believe. You know, like the moon was made of metal. You only see one side of the moon. There's aliens on the dark side of the moon. And but I used to listen to him, but not, there were certain things I could accept in his arguments, but there were certain things I couldn't. And I think that answers what you're saying. You don't have to listen to everything they're saying. Out of politeness, you don't have to accept everything they're saying.
Exactly.
Out
Yeah.
of politeness, you listen. And then you give your own opinion. And hopefully, when you're having that discussion, they accept your opinion just as you accepted theirs. But that doesn't always happen.
No. No, some people are very stuck in what they are believing.
So we've got a Magdalena now. She's joined us and she said, "That was a great answer, thank you." And Ann-Catherine liked the answer too. So, so yeah. Well, we've got about 10 minutes to go. So because we've got this big audience of 2, we'll keep going. Because I always said, whether it's what we said, if no one comes, we'll keep to. And I said somebody's coming because she told me on my Facebook page, I will be there, and she's here. She hasn't let us down. So I want to go back to what you said about religious philosophy. Sometimes with that kind of philosophy, I find that they try to brainwash people that you must do this, you must do this. And what I like about the United States, or one of the things, is that religion and education are separate.
Mhm.
So if your parents are religious, they send you to church, they don't send you to school. Now in the UK, it's different. You've been to my home, just over the road, there's a school. That's a Church of England school. So they have to teach about the Bible. It's a part of the curriculum. Where my grandsons go, or the youngest one now, not the other 2 have moved on to secondary school. But he goes, it's called St. Thomas's, and that's the Church of England. And I often, when I go there, I wonder who's in charge, the headmaster or the actual vicar from St. Thomas's. It's almost as if the vicar's there not to undermine the headmaster, but to make sure that he's doing in the school what the Church of England expects of him. And I feel that's undermining. So I don't like it. I accept that people should have their own religious beliefs. But a lot of the people that go to those schools, their children aren't religious and the parents aren't religious, but they send them because they say, oh, they're good schools. And to try to get somebody to believe, I mean, they got me to believe it, but I really enjoyed the stories in the Bible.
Yeah.
But my religious philosophy's changed, as you know, vastly, to a more spiritualist philosophy, belief in life after death. And I've lived by the 7 principles for 20 odd years. But since leaving the Spiritualist National Union, my philosophy's changed again, where I'm more accepting of other religious philosophies, because if we look at all of them, generally the background is the same. The roots are the same. You know, they all come from usually a superior being, or so, apart from Buddhism. That's not technically a religion, it's a way of life, but it's classed as a religion. We don't have to accept all these other things, because I've learned to live with all of them. You don't have to accept that one way is right, because then if you see something, you think, oh, I like that. And you might, I can't like that because it's against my religious belief. We don't like that.
Aren't those two different things, though? Like belief and religion. Because I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe he lived. I believe his philosophy and what he tried to do. But I don't necessarily like Christian religion.
Yes. Yeah, no, I understand. That's what I'm like now. Yes, I agree. I was just looking at what some of the people are saying. Angatron's saying the respect of other people, other person's choice of belief. So you should respect what they believe. And in Sweden, I'm not sure if that's translated right, but it says all students can believe what they want. They're in school to learn. And I mean, I've worked in Sweden. They're moving away from mainstream religions, you know. I mean, when I used to work for Ankatrin, we didn't say a prayer, for instance, at one service. We did a quiet moment. And the power within that quiet moment was wonderful. So
yeah, and that's so profound. That's so beautiful. And if you go to a church and listen to a sermon, I feel it's more like a theater. It's about power. It's about control, and it doesn't feel like loving or in the name of Jesus at all. And I've had a very bad experience with the Catholic Church. Do you want to hear about it?
yes, yes.
My father lived in South Africa when he died. And so the service was done in South Africa. And I asked the Catholic Church, because my father was Catholic, if we could, me and my sisters could be in church, and that he was mentioned in the service. So I spoke with a man, and he was like, yes, of course you can, and very nice, and be there, and we will do that. So I was there with my sisters, and we were, of course, very sad that my father died. And I have two sisters who are, how do you say, they are a little bit challenged.
Yeah.
I don't want to insult them. They are a bit challenged. So we were there in the trust that somebody that the person would say something, but it was another person who did the service, and the person who did the service said, there are some people here who want me to mention their father's name, but they are not baptized, so they will go to hell, and I won't say anything. And there we were.
Yeah.
So this was my experience with the Catholic religion. And really, this is not love.
No, no. But that's what I was saying earlier, where you're indoctrinated, because I'm sure Stephanie won't mind me saying, but in her family, in the UK, back when her sister was born, so 60 odd years ago, and they used to have something when the women had a baby, they weren't allowed out the house for 10 days because they hadn't been what was called churched. Now, Stephanie's grandfather was a lay preacher, the Methodist Church,
Oh,
and her mom took a sister as a baby, her elder sister as a baby. The first child wanted to show her parents this lovely bundle of love. And the father said, you're not bringing that child in here, you haven't been churched. So she had to go away. She had to get back in the car. And I remember talking to my mother-in-law about it and her telling me how upset she was at the time. And yet it didn't stop her from being a Sunday school teacher and teaching that religion. And that's what I said earlier about the religions. When the original prophets wrote their philosophies, their beliefs, how they wanted people to live, is completely different to how they've been interpreted, translated, rewritten over the years. And it's sad that usually it's somebody powerful that changes it and then gets everybody to try and believe it. And you're right, it isn't nice. Not nice at all.
No.
But they think they're being good. Look at all the children that were sent to Australia by the Catholic Church. And I don't want to make it sound like we're using the Catholic Church to beat people.
Yeah,
Most religions have done things wrong.
of course. Yeah.
Lots of things wrong.
It was just an example. I'm in a way against every religion.
So I think they should all look at their philosophy,
Yes.
basically, because we're coming up to 5 minutes left now. There's no more questions popped up. I hope we're still sending out to the millions of viewers that'll watch this eventually. And as we're winding up, perhaps Tanya and I have said some things that you find offensive, and we apologize for that in a way, but it's our belief. You know, we haven't bashed anybody really. We've given our own life experiences that's formed our life philosophy, and we've talked about our religious experiences, which formed our religious philosophies. And the two can live together, or you can have them separate. You can live a stoic religious philosophy and not enjoy your life because you're being commanded to what to do by somebody who's no different than you, apart from they've been to school, they've been to university, and they've passed a theological exam, and they're now telling you what to do. Or you can accept your religious belief within your religion, but live your life philosophy. That's how I'm going to finish. How about you?
I'm so grateful for this conversation. It has been thought-provoking.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
And yeah, I hope that people take the positive from it.
Yeah, me too.
Instead of being insulted because of things we said. Yeah.
Yeah. Our intention was never to insult.
No, our intention was to enrich and empower.
Yeah. See, I was going to add, if you've been insulted, you weren't listening. But that's your belief. So if you feel insulted, please accept the apology. Because that wasn't the intention. It was an unscripted talk, and we hope you've enjoyed it. So on behalf of myself, good night. And from Tanya,
Good night.
thank you very much.